Good evening, I'm Evelina Leung in Hong Kong and welcome to View TV News. Coming up on tonight's show. The government refuses to comment on reports that a Financial Times journalist has been refused a visa renewal. Victor Mallet is Vice President of the FCC and chaired a controversial pro-independence talk back in August. The Education Bureau is investigating a Shatin primary school after its principal was accused of misusing money collected for students' study tours to Australia. And a temporary ban in place to prevent musicians from playing at Times Square. First up tonight, the government is refusing to comment on reports that a Financial Times journalist was denied a visa renewal for Hong Kong. This is raising suspicions of political interference, given that the reporter was one of those criticized by the Hong Kong and Beijing governments for hosting a pro-independence talk at the Foreign Correspondents Club. As Alma Lee reports, the local Journalists Association said it's shocked and said the decision undermines Hong Kong as an international city.
Victor Mallet has been denied a visa renewal by the Hong Kong government. That's according to the Financial Times, which issued an official statement this afternoon, saying, "This is the first time we have encountered the situation in Hong Kong, and we have not been given a reason for the rejection." Mallet is the Asian news editor of the publication and also one of the vice presidents of the Foreign Correspondents Club. He chaired a controversial talk by pro-independence activist Andy Chen back in August, which was criticized by both Hong Kong and Beijing authorities. Today's decision is raising concerns among some Hong Kongers that it might be politically motivated. One lawmaker said officials have no grounds to deny the application, since the journalist has done nothing illegal, and pointed out that this is suppressing press freedom.
I suspect it's a retaliation measure and sending a very wrong message to the international community. Hong Kong is just another city of the mainland.
However, another legislator defended the move, saying the FCC talk was unacceptable.
The event has already gone beyond the level or the scope of Hong Kong SAR. It has been escalated to one country level. It is a total discretion for a government to determine whether they would like to grant a visa to a particular individual to enter Hong Kong.
The government said it won't comment on individual cases and that the Immigration Department acts in accordance with the laws and prevailing policies when deciding whether to approve visas.
Now to a scandal that has hit a primary school in Sha Tin. The principal has denied allegations that she's misused money collected from parents for school tours to Australia over the past 7 years. The Education Bureau has launched an investigation into it. Lydia Song has the details.
The scandal broke at Baptist Sha Tin Wai Leung Choi Primary School in Sha Tin. The school is said to have received almost 2.9 million equivalent of Australian dollars over the last 7 years, money that was meant to pay for students' expenses during study tours to Australia. Parents were told that any remaining money would go to the school's development fund. But the Apple Daily reported today that school principal Joy Sit has instead deposited parts of the funds into a teacher's personal account and even used some of it for teachers' personal traveling expenses. In a news conference this morning, school officials argued that the cash was kept in the teacher's account because setting up a foreign currency account was too complicated.
We did not deposit the Australian dollars all in one go into the teacher's account. Say if booking a travel coach costs $5,000, we would then put in $5,000 into the account. The teacher would then write a $5,000 cheque paying for the coach out of the account.
Sit denied there were elements of fraud and fund mismanagement, but admitted there's room for improvement when it comes to how the money is stored. The principal also dismissed accusations that some of the money had been used for teachers' personal traveling. However, she did admit that the cash collected was used to also cover teachers' flights and accommodation.
The auditors who came by earlier this year reminded us that fees collected from students for study tours cannot be used to cover teachers' expenses under the EDB's new guidelines. We've notified the school board about it, which then told the Parents and Teachers Association not to do it again in the future.
The school added another 30,000 Australian dollars, the equivalent of around 165,000 Hong Kong dollars, has now been transferred to a safe, and professional accountants will be brought in to check the books. The EDB says it's looking into the case. The Bureau stressed that all school income must be deposited into the school's official accounts and that receipts should be stored for at least 7 years for transparency.
The High Court has imposed a temporary ban on all busking activities in the open area of Times Square. The application came after the mall sued a street musician for making noises and obstructing others. In applying for the ban, a lawyer for the shopping mall said even if the area is closed off, there are plenty of other venues where buskers can perform. Times Square also said the musicians were making noises above the legally acceptable level. The judge who granted the application said the mall has a duty to keep the area clean and tidy and make sure no one is engaged in noisy or disorderly conduct. The ban will remain in effect until the court hearing involving the street musician ends. More revelations as to what policies might be included in Carrie Lam's upcoming policy address. Sources say the government will continue to beef up supply of public and subsidized housing. It's believed the CE wants to build more subsidized homes, which are usually an alternative between public rental units and private flats. Sources also say the government will shift the public to private housing ratio in newly obtained land plots from 60-40 to 70-30. While some believe the potential changes could help shorten the long queues for public units, a former government housing advisor said it won't be able to cool the red-hot property market.
It could provide some sort of relief to the public housing shortage situation, but that means people can expect less private homes in the future. That could make housing prices soar even higher in such a climate.
Religious groups in Hong Kong have once again expressed concerns over China's crackdown on Christianity. Several Christian organizations gathered more than 1,500 signatures and expressed their anger at reports that churches have been torn down in multiple cities in China. These groups also criticized authorities for demanding missionaries to take tests about Chinese policies and culture. They added that some of the regulations on the mainland are ambiguous. They're urging the Chinese government to abide by the Constitution and protect the religious freedom of its citizens.
For example, the religious regulation says the church must be one of the organizations that support the socialism system of the China. Okay, but exactly what does the church need to do in order to show they support, the socialist system or the party? That is not explicitly written on the regulations.
Detained former Home Affairs Chief Patrick Ho, who's been accused of corruption, has been denied bail yet again by a U.S. court. This comes after the judge said Ho could face a tough trial as a former co-defendant is expected to testify against him. Ho was arrested last year and given 8 counts of bribery and money laundering charges related to the advanced oil and development rights of a China-based energy company in Chad and Uganda. This is the 5th time the former Hong Kong official has been rejected for bail, despite claims that he has no intention of fleeing. Coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Asian shares were fragile on Friday after benchmark U.S. Treasury yields surged to a 7-year high and strong economic data fanned concerns about inflation and interest rate rises. Here in Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index fell 0.19% to close at 26,572 points. Mainland markets remain shut for the Golden Week holiday. Elon Musk can't seem to steer away from Twitter controversy. This time, the Tesla boss has taken aim at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, just days after reaching an agreement with it over fraud charges. The deal allowed Musk to remain chief executive. In a tweet, Musk dubbed the SEC Short Seller Enrichment Commission and mocked that it was doing incredible work. The name change is so on point, he said. Last weekend, Musk agreed to step down as Tesla chairman and pay a $20 million fine over tweets that he had funding to take Tesla private. Samsung expects to post a record operating profit in the third quarter. That's off the back of strong sales of memory chips, shrugging off worries that its earnings may have peaked. The South Korean company's chip unit was bolstered by robust demand from data centers and gains in production yields. Samsung is the world's top maker of memory chips and smartphones. It said in a preliminary estimate that third quarter profit would jump 20% to 17.5 trillion won. That's roughly $15 billion in line with market expectations. But analysts say falling prices for some electronic components could hit further earning growth. Japan household spending rose by the most in years in August thanks to bigger bonuses. And that's offering signs that consumers are beginning to feel the nation's economic recovery. Household spending rose 2.8% in August from a year earlier, beating estimates. It was the second straight month of gains. Consumption was recovering from a slump as households spent bonuses on purchases of pricier items, including vehicles and air conditioners. But risks still remain. Higher oil prices and the recent yen depreciation will make imported goods more expensive. And a series of natural disasters is likely to drive prices of fresh foods higher. There are concerns in Europe that a new emission that many call extremely aggressive could ultimately lead to job losses. Tui Ong tells us why.
A new ambitious target to cut carbon dioxide emissions from cars and vans to 40% below 1990 levels by 2030.
We are agreeing also that this, together with the well-to-wheel approach, can really award cleaner technology, cleaner production and also cleaner fuels.
The new rules will introduce a credit system for the rollout of electric cars, as well as fines for exceeding carbon dioxide limits.
Obviously, car manufacturers would have been looking for lower targets, but I think that as much as we have seen almost a fashion change against diesel, we will eventually see a fashion change against the internal combustion engine.
Still, some aren't pleased. The German Car Association, VDA, says the targets are unrealistic and can't be achieved in the given period of time. It also fears jobs could be lost. That sentiment is shared by the German government, though it will still back the proposal and has its own plans to cut pollution from older diesel cars.
As long as they meet the minimum criteria for these emission standards, then it won't be an issue. It gives the European car makers a head start, certainly over US car makers.
The European car makers lobby, ACEA, has also called the targets extremely aggressive, but other EU countries, including France, are seeking higher targets.
Time for a short break now, but do stay with us when we return. Hong Kong runner Wang Ho-chung leads Chile's grueling Atacama Crossing Marathon at the halfway point. We'll have all the details for you in just a moment.
Reigning US Open champion, Naomi Osaka. World number 6, Alina Svitolina. 2017 Roland Garros winner, Yelena Ostapenko. Go head-to-head with some of the world's top players in the city that never sleeps. Prudential presents Prudential Hong Kong Tennis Open 2018. Starts Monday, live on Channel 96, View TV 6. This October, Now TV brings you a sporting feast. It's one of the biggest football rivalries. Find out who draws first blood in this classical matchup. El Clasico. The tennis season may near its end, but the tension just gets bigger. Catch the final two ATP 1000 series, the Rolex Shanghai Masters and the Rolex Paris Masters. The coolest sport on the planet is back. 31 teams set their sight on the Stanley Cup Finals when the new NHL season squares off. It's one of the biggest golf tournaments contested in China. For honor and for money, there's everything to play for. The WGC HSBC champions. Come along for the sports ride. This October, only on Now TV. Hard-hitting investigative reports. Newsmaker interviews. Compelling human interest stories. Life-changing reports. News magazine that draws you in. 2020. Saturday night at 9:30 on View TV 6.
The flooding of New Orleans was a man-made catastrophe.
You can't stay here, Daddy.
What the hell happened to him?
New Orleanians strive to rebuild their lives.
Yes, we can! Yes, we can! It's about culture and family tradition.
A dynamic human life drama.
I'm not letting them tell me how to live.
The realest portrait of the city of jazz. Now TV presents HBO Originals, Treme, Saturday night at 10:30 on View TV 6. Wrestling fever explodes on View TV 6 as we bring you action from the WWE Raw. Catch the stars, the drama, the thrills and the spills. What is going on? A new episode every week. The WWE Raw. Tonight at 12 midnight on Channel 96 View TV 6.
Welcome back. Relief and rescue efforts continue in the Indonesian island of Sulawesi 1 week after a powerful earthquake and tsunami struck the region. The death toll has now climbed to more than 1,500. Our Southeast Asia correspondent Sandy Huang has the latest.
Well, it's been a week since the disaster struck, and officials fear the death toll will rise significantly as time runs out to find survivors. There are reports that hundreds could still be trapped under the ruins. The earthquake caused soil to liquefy, turning the ground into a churning sea of mud. Officials said 1,700 homes in one neighborhood alone was swallowed up, killing more than 800 people. But there are some signs of recovery. In Palu, electricity has been restored, and some shops and banks have reopened, and aid and fuel are arriving. Rescue workers are pushing into more remote areas. Villagers were seen scrambling for supplies as a Red Cross helicopter landed in Sao Paulo today. Doctors are flocking in from other parts of Indonesia to help. Hospitals are at full capacity and many patients are at high risk of infection as they were buried under mud. And for relatives of the initial wave of victims, there is a data set that may bring closure in the coming weeks and months. The authorities have decided it is now more important to focus on the living than to continue with the difficult and costly forensic process. The hospital in Palu said yesterday that all bodies would now be sent straight to graveyards.
Former South Korean President Lee Myung-bak has been sentenced to 15 years in jail for corruption. He's the latest in a string of high-profile political and business leaders entangled by such charges. Earlier, I spoke to our Seoul correspondent Joseph Kim, who talked us through these charges.
He's been sentenced to 15 years in prison as well as fined roughly $12 million for charges of bribery, embezzlement, as well as abuse of power. Now, the South Korean court found that Lee had received millions of dollars from top companies like Samsung, as well as his intelligence agencies to lawmakers, and he received millions of dollars from them, and this was during the time of his presidency. Now, during this investigation and hearing, it was also revealed that a lot of this was found at the time when this investigation happened. Here's what the judge had to say during the proceeding.
During the process to disclose the actual truth in cases that were full of doubt, other crimes that the accused had committed during his term in office were also uncovered. The accused aroused mistrust and disappointment in our society, as well as in people who have supported and believed in him.
Thousands of protesters have taken to the streets of New York against Brett Kavanaugh, the U.S. Supreme Court nominee facing allegations of sexual misconduct. Demonstrators rallied outside the Supreme Court and entered a Senate office building. Hundreds of protesters were arrested, including actress Amy Schumer. It came as Republicans gained confidence that Kavanaugh could win Senate confirmation after positive responses to an FBI report. A key procedural vote on the nominee will be held today. During a rally yesterday, Trump voiced his support for Kavanaugh.
Democrats have been trying to destroy Judge Brett Kavanaugh since the very first second he was announced. And he was announced for one simple reason. He is an incredible intellect, an incredible person, an incredible talent. He's been an incredible judge.
Staying with the U.S., and Vice President Mike Pence has stepped up its pressure campaign against Beijing as tensions between the two sides soar beyond a bitter trade war. Speaking in Washington overnight, Pence accused China of malign efforts to undermine Trump ahead of next month's congressional elections. It comes after the U.S. president made allegations that Beijing was trying to interfere in the vote. Though neither Trump or Pence have provided hard evidence of meddling by China, which has denied the claims.
The American people deserve to know. In response to the strong stand that President Trump has taken, Beijing is pursuing a comprehensive and coordinated campaign to undermine support for the president, our agenda, and our nation's most cherished ideals.
The U.S. has charged 7 Russian intelligence officers with conspiring to hack computers and steal data. The Justice Department said one of them stole login credentials of employees at nuclear energy company Westinghouse for servers in the U.S. The charges came hours after Dutch authorities said they had disrupted an attempt by Russians to hack into a Hague-based organization tasked with probing the use of chemical weapons. Britain and the Netherlands have accused Russia of running a global campaign of cyber attacks to undermine democracies. To Zimbabwe now, where health officials are vaccinating people living in the urban areas in an attempt to contain a major cholera outbreak. But some think the prevention measures need to be extended to rural areas. Lucy Fielder has the story.
Zimbabwe has started vaccinating people living in urban areas as it tries to contain the worst cholera outbreak to hit the country in a decade. Some 1.4 million people will get a jab to prevent the spread of the disease. It's already killed 49 people and infected thousands more.
Next time they should react faster. They responded late. By then many people had died. They should be quick.
The crisis is a big test for Zimbabwe's government, already under pressure to revive a battered economy following 4 decades of rule under Robert Mugabe. Many Zimbabweans are concerned officials aren't doing enough.
They should also go to the rural areas giving these doses, not only urban, so that this disease doesn't affect the whole country.
Zimbabwe has appealed locally for help to buy vaccines and medicines, but it also needs money to repair water and sewer pipes if it wants to contain the waterborne disease.
Time for sports. Hong Kong's Wong Ho-chung is nearly 2 hours ahead of the field at the halfway point of one of the world's most grueling races in Chile. The Atacama Crossing is a week-long race over 250 kilometers of desert. Wang completed 120 kilometers in 10 hours and 55 minutes and is in contention to break the course record. The Atacama crossing is part of a full desert ultra marathon series. Competitors have to deal with searing temperatures, high altitudes, and unforgiving terrain.
Yeah, I feel so tired, exhausted, because I think the first 2 sessions is okay, it's easy, but the last 3 sessions is, it's so difficult.
Turning to tennis now, and second seed Alexander Zverev suffered an early exit at the China Open in Beijing, losing in 3 sets to Tunisia's Malek Jaziri on Thursday. The German appeared to have recovered from losing the opener on a tiebreak as he raced through the second set. But his 34-year-old opponent executed a tweener shot through his legs to win a point at 2-5 down. The Tunisian went on to claim his 3rd victory over a top 5 opponent this season. The final score, 7-6, 2-6, 6-4. Turning to football now, and Cristiano Ronaldo has been left out of the Portugal squad for this month's matches against Poland and Scotland. The 33-year-old captain and record scorer was also rested for last month's internationals. On Wednesday, Ronaldo strongly denied an allegation that he raped a woman in 2009. Meanwhile, sportswear giant Nike say they are deeply concerned by the allegations. Nike has worked with Ronaldo since 2003 and in 2016 announced a lifetime deal worth a reported $1 billion. And that's it for now. Goodbye.